Hi everyone, welcome back to the Jansen Art Studio. We're continuing some of our studies on quick little compositions and stuff, and today is, I had this great sale about a week or so ago on, and I bought a whole bunch of these frames, and they're beautiful hardwood frames, and just really, really lovely. And they came with a mat board, they came with the glass and everything, and a little panel actually inset. I made my own panel, but it came with a panel too. And so I decided I'm going to be painting some of these and decorating them up, and I'll show you how to do it. So we have to keep this frame color. If we're not going to change the frame color, you have to keep the frame color of the dark in mind. So we'll have to have a certain amount of contrast right inside of our flowers here to pop that interest and stuff we have here. So let's get in here with the painting. So what I've done is I've taped off so that I know kind of where the border of my mat is. So it just covers up the mat, just covers that up. And so I know I have to stay within that area. I don't want anything to be covered up by the mat, so I just tape out the lines here. I just put a little pencil mark here. Matter of fact, I'll take those off right now, where I laid the mat on and put a little pencil mark where the corners of the mat were, and then just laid some tape down here to do that. So let's get going. All right, I'm going to start out this time. Let's see. Let's go with a kind of a grayish kind of tone. Let's go with our ultramarine blue. And like I say, I use these kind of things to play with some tones and some, look at some different colors and stuff. And I love ultramarine blue and I love burnt sienna. Let's use those two together here. Let's put those out, and this would be those kinds of tones would be beautiful inside this kind of frame. Now we're not going to use the blue that much. We might use something like that, but we use the burnt sienna here to kind of tone this down just a bit, gray it down. We'll put a softer blue-gray here into some of our background, maybe blue going right into a little warmer color right down here. See, those are beautiful colors together. As a matter of fact, you could take some yellows and try those in there. Some violets would be pretty. Take a little bit of your quinacridone violet here and set that off, and a little bit of that burnt sienna into that, and look at those colors. They're pretty colors, and this is what I do with these quick compositions. I try to find and use some colors that maybe I haven't used before or done before. Let's put a little blue right here like this. I like that blue like that. Let's just drag this all the way down. Let's try something different here. Just kind of drag this down like this. Just kind of set up a color band here, maybe going this way, and maybe right into some of these violets and light colors here, and grays. These are pretty colors, and I'll just set this up as this movement here into this background here, like that. Let's go a little bit more color right in here, and I see a little bit of that pinky color. Try to find some nice, pretty color. Sometimes I leave that yellowish color back down there. Sometimes I'll take some of it out or just soften it out there a little bit. Let's put a little heavier blue. Now, if we put a little heavier blue up here, that means we should carry it through the composition someplace. Not necessarily becomes a rule because it's such a small little painting, but that's something that I think about when I do that. As a matter of fact, let's since we're getting some of this right here, let's generate a little bit more interest to some of that just with our knife. Our palette knife works really well to grab some of this color and drag that over, and look at that little spot of violet that I have in there. That's kind of pretty right there like that. And we'll just drag that right off the edge here, some of that violet. Just let that go right off the edge there like that. That makes kind of a pretty little color. I like to use the knife back here to like this to get some just variations in some of my backgrounds and my tones. All right, now I can come in here and paint in this wet, done that 100 times with you, or I can take off slightly where I'm going to put the flower, and I'll take off some of that extra color right where I'm going to put a flower right here, just because that'll make it easier for me to lift that flower. And let's just put this right down. Maybe one will come right in here and right up here or something like that. We'll put those in. Okay, let's go back to our handy little number 10, a nice little 10 flat or so. Here's one right here. This will work. 8 or a 10. This will be an 8. I'll work with this 8. This will work. Okay, and you could use any size there. Let's kind of suggest, before we go anything, let's just kind of, I'll show you a different technique I use sometimes I'm going to take kind of a grayish kind of tone here, and this will be an undertone, a kind of common tone. Where these are the colors I used into the background. I'll just take a slightly darker version of it. Okay, so, and I use this to come in and kind of state the shape of the rose and do some sketching, what we call brush sketching. And I'll sketch in kind of what I want. So I start here with spinning a small circle. Let's come in just a little closer for you so you can see that a little easier. Okay, there we go. And spin that around, and then come in, kind of sketch this, or sketch the size. This will be the outside reaching petals. That's where that will control my flower there. And we were going to have maybe one reach up this way, maybe a little bud or something like that reach up this way. Maybe we'll put another little, we'll do a couple of, maybe another little bud right down here, and maybe one right down here that's open, this beginning to open up this way. Now I got to be careful. This is just a small little painting here. I don't want to crowd it too much with stuff. And let's take some of that burnt sienna and a little bit of pine green and a little bit of my blue here. And let's come in and let's take just a little bit more of my blue. Now, ultramarine blue, you have to add more of it than you do the phthalo blue. And this is, the ultramarine blue is a beautiful, old historical pigment, but it does not have as much punch or power as the phthalo blue, so you usually use quite a bit more. Now, see, if I keep this blue here, my thought is, you know, I've got to work some of that blue down through here. So if I keep this blue to a blue-green right down here, and I'll just toss in some of this, I'll immediately start to work some of my colors. Let's work that into the background there. Just some movement there. Really start to work these colors, these ideas here of this blue into some of this background here. And you can use it like I show you in all the Paint It Simply. One of the main techniques we do is the negative painting here. And that's why I use the background or a leaf or something like that to kind of help and shape up my flowers. I use the chisel here. What I'm doing is I'm thinking about movement, the design growing and moving out. That's all I'm thinking about. Let's change that up to a little more green. And, you know, that's a beautiful thing about compositions and painting compositions, that you move your leaves into different colors. And see, so now I have these greens here, these softer greens going right into some of these bluer tones here that carry and reflect that background right up there. So, and that's what gives you a lot of difference. And you know, your leaves are some of the things, and let's use this with a little bit of burnt sienna here. Your leaves are some of the things that are common throughout most of your painting, and so they're wonderful things to help carry color and stuff. So I just take this with this fusion brush. It just paints so beautifully doing this nice light technique. I'm just barely touching the surface using just a corner. It gives you casual little movements right here with this brush. It's just magnificent for doing that and establishing movement. I just absolutely love it. When I have that burnt sienna, I've done this 1,000 times with you, I like to use that little bit of burnt sienna into the corner of the brush like this and give like just the idea of little stems and everything, and it just works so well. So these kind of techniques I do them in the Paint Symphony, but we do them all in what I call a quick composition series, and we have a whole series of books and videos that go with it, quick compositions, and using all different kinds of techniques and painting 30-minute paintings and everything. And I cannot stress enough to you that is what will make you a better artist. It is like my daughter Jessica just returned back to the university, and one of the courses that she is taking is the instructor in this fine art course to finish her fine art degree. One of the courses, this instructor is making them do 30-minute painting drills using only 6 colors. Gee, the 6 colors of the Paint It Simply and 30-minute painting drills. And they do that to refine and develop their techniques. That's really the truth. You know, it works that. And so Anybody can paint. It's just a matter of how much practice you're going to put into learning those techniques. Let's take a little bit of that green. Now, we don't want to cut that right in half, so we'll take a little bit of that green and we'll carry it back up over the other side. Now, one of the things you always keep in mind is this is going to go to a dark frame, so you got to make sure that, you know, okay, I'm getting some dark contrast in there. I can get a little bit more. That will help my eye go back into there. I can get a little bit more. That will work. Now we got to pick out our rose here, our kind of soft rose, a soft gray kind of putty color would be kind of pretty. Maybe just a touch of yellow into that. This is the colors we used basically into our background. We'll come in and we'll go right into that and right into white here. And we'll build this front. I'm just going to build a little bit of color and even a little bit of blue down through here because that'll carry into the cool side. The ultramarine blue, and I've made, you know, paint, and I've been a colorist for paint companies for 30 years, and so many people think the ultramarine blue is cool, but it actually, the pigment blue 29, which is the chemical index name, pigment blue 29 is warm. There is not a single paint manufacturer of ultramarine blue today that makes a cool blue. Now, cool ultramarine blue. They're all warm, but it is cooler than the yellows and that, especially that burnt sienna. So I have that into that burnt sienna in there. It's going to make that blue look really cool. Okay, so it is a relative. The temperature is relative to things that you have around it. Okay. So sometimes, you know, when you use that blue on something and your whole painting is very cool and the blue doesn't seem to be working, it's a temperature thing. Let's put a little bit of that right down into there and right down into there. Just carry those colors a little bit. Now I'm gonna kick it up. Let's warm that up a bit. Let's just get a little bit of that yellow warmth. Look at that beautiful warmth that will come in. Let's pick up a little side right here. Maybe that'll have a little yellow there. Let's drop the temperature a little bit of blue, a little bit of that. We drop the temperature because we're thinking we're leaving the light. So let's not make it quite as bright down here. Just a little bit. That's one of the things you're thinking about. You're leaving your light, your area of interest. Let's go grab some white now. We'll come right down into our area here. I'm going to pick up quite a bit of white, quite a thick load of white, and I'm going to strike the front of that rose, right where I want that rose to go right there. And then I'm going to think about rounding the bowl. Thinking about building the roundness to the bowl. I'm barely touching the surface, and this is where this fusion brush shines because it just paints so soft for you. A synthetic and all of that, you know, the synthetics, which are a little bit stiffer and stuff out there, just can't do it. This fusion is a synthetic, but it's a synthetic squirrel. It's actually made for watercolor. So it's made for very soft manipulation of the colors, and we can use it perfectly in here. Let's build a little bit out here on the outside edge here. Let's build a little bit more. So I'll pull across here like this. Then I'll just wipe my brush, and I'm just going to lift out a bit here like this to push those petals out. Now I can restate and add more shadow later if I want, but right now I'll just pull out like that and just capture some of the motion or movement of the rose. Let's add a few little suggestive petals here. Just a chisel of that brush. Move that back through like that. Now let's come back in. Let's cool off. We used the quinacridone violet earlier. Let's grab some quinacridone violet, a little burnt sienna, maybe even a touch of blue here. Nice little darker kind of tone that we can use into the center of this rose. And I'm going to start out in the deep throat, and I'm just going to paint for movement coming out. Let's add a little bit to the shadowy side here of the rose. And I'm just moving my brush around in this light pressure, and that's what gives you the little petals and stuff like that that we want to have. Let's add some of that right in here, a little stroke of that, and that'll make that little rosebud we want to have right there. Maybe a little more burnt sienna and that quinacridone right here. We'll put that other rosebud right in there. Okay, one more right down here. Maybe a little more open. So if we're going to open it up, let's give it a little bit of that shadow at the bottom base there, like that. Okay. I'm going to Add just a little more blue and burnt sienna there, here to this color, and let's add just a little bit more here to the dark. Now, one of the reasons why I have to do that, and I'll show you in just a second, is I'll put in that dark in there. I'm going to be watching this up against my frame, and I want the viewer's eye to come into that center of that rose. So I've got to keep that in mind as I'm building this rose, that we have to have a certain amount of contrast into this rose. Now, I have a very heavy light area here. I'm just going to lift off some of this, just like this, just to kind of keep this roundness. The rose just constantly builds in a round shape, and I'll use all different kinds of strokes to emulate that roundness here, and just light pressure with the brush just to, you know, grab some of that movement there. We'll grab a little bit into the back, and just small little touches as you go inside here. We don't want to get rid of all the dark, but we want to create some of that nice rose movement there. Around like that. Okay, zoom around like that. Just get some of that movement. If you get too much, just take a little bit of your dark back through that again. Just take some of that movement out there. And I want to continue to build here along the front, maybe another line of petals here. And this is great because sometimes a little bit of that pink, or you can put a little bit of that color in your brush and just lift off like that, and it'll carry some of those colors back over to that side of the rose. Keep it very light and nice. And let's push one right across the front of the rose there. Maybe an angle or two, or one or so little spots right there like that. Wipe the brush, just lift off, and see you carry that motion. And that's what I'm looking for, is that real casual movement this way and down that way that builds the rose. I don't always build petals. And many painters that are coming from the decorative industry, we always were taught to build these petals. Well, now I don't. Sometimes I'll just take off a little bit and round up a bit here like this. And I'll state it several times. I'll come back and say, no, I don't quite like that. Let me state that one more time, about like that. And so I paint back and forth several times. I'll put another heavy stroke of white right in here, maybe a couple of them, build out that shape a little bit like that. I'll wipe my brush, and I'll just touch and lift off and start to take off some of that into the motion of where I want that petal to go, here like that, and that gives it that movement. Everything's going to look like a petal fine as long as it has the movement. You could use chisels of your brush to put in some smaller little petals like that, or ideas of smaller petals here. Just kind of use the chisel there. But I'm going to direct the movement here. Just always go back and find that bottom rose, that bowl, that movement, and I can have all kinds of, could use a little edge like this. I can have all kinds of little petals out here, and if I want to draw them on like that, just using that corner of that brush, kind of rounding a bit there, giving this the suggestion of the rose. But I really want to have lots of thick paint up here and to the front. This is a different type of rose. A lot of thick paint and contrast. Lift off just a bit. Let's put a little thicker paint right here so I can maybe grab another little petal right here. And I'll just drop one in like that. That looks pretty nice. Nice thick paint. Let's just restate this edge here and lift that off here to a little edge. That's pretty. See, I get that nice movement. Now, how much white you put in there, that's up to you. Whether you want to take this and just grab a little corner of this and just add a little chisel of some light. Let's pick up a little heavier than that. A little thick coat of chisel there. And just give the idea of a little chisel of color there. And lift some of that off like that to the movement of the rose. That makes a pretty soft little airy rose. Let's drop one right in here, this back. We'll paint these very simple. Just a little shape there going around like that. Maybe a little more, just round it up. Maybe another little heavier stroke of light. Just touch and lift off. Maybe the idea of a little petal there. And then you can pull out, lift some of that off, or round it up so you can get some transparency there, and leave that areas of interest like that. Let's just put something soft out here, a little touch out, give a little bit of emotion there, like, or we can close it up like this is a little rosebud. We just kind of curve that in like that, close it up. Use your finger to pull out, take off some of the excess. Maybe just pick up an edge like that on the corner that you can set out here like that and draw a little bit more of a particular petal if you want, or a little bit more of a edge if you want. Now, what really makes this makes this a rosebud more than anything else is that oval shape to the center like that. So if I really want this to look more like a rosebud, all I have to do is take my color and push it in and oval up a little bit more. Let's just drop a little bit of that out there like that. See, and that just makes it look like a soft little rosebud. Let's come back down here, drop one right out here. Okay, that's kind of nice. And we'll soften this pink just a bit more so it's not quite so bright. A little burnt sienna into it. And out there like that. Just use your finger. You got to paint lost edges. And we talk about this in all of the books and everything I do. The lost edges. You need those lost edges to develop those lost edges, because that's what gives you makes the front of the rose come forward when the back of the rose gets lost. So we'll lift off just a touch. Let's put a few little petals this way. Now what that'll do is point the viewer back up that way here and direct them back up to our center of interest, see? And then I'll let this just become lost down here onto this side. And see, that just lifts the viewer right up there. Now your eye goes up that way. And learning how to, it's part of compositional skills, what's another thing that I teach. Learning those little elements makes you a beautiful rose, makes you a beautiful composition painter. You know, what causes some of those, the viewer's eye to look that way. So there I just struck on the petal and lifted off the extra. I can come back and touch a little bit of light here and there where I want to have a little bit more. I'm going to come back with a little bit of my quinacridone, a little bit of my burnt sienna here onto my brush, maybe a touch of that blue into that. And I'm going to lift right through here and restate some of the shadow here on this side of the rose. And I'm going to go right into some, I like that warm yellow. I kind of lost a little bit of that. So I'm going to push a little more warm yellow right in there. But I'm going to restate this quinacridone over here, and partially because that's going to create more contrast in the center of my rose. And I'm just going to wipe my finger through there so that stays a little soft, and then I'll come back in and restate some of the light, a little bit of the light movement back through there. That will give that nice lovely movement to the rose. And since I hit this light heavy opaque front, I'll put some of that back on. And we'll just wipe our brush and lift some of that pink up and into the rose a bit here. There we go, just like that. So we get some of that nice roundness. And as you can see, there's just 1,000 different ways you can shape a rose here. I like that. I'm just going to lift some of that off there just a bit, leaving that a little heavier over there. Maybe a touch more light coming through here, just a few areas into that center. See those little tick, tick, just add a lot of interest there. I can do that just by picking up a little corner of the brush and just use that to draw any kind of extra little petals that I want. You know, the more little petals you draw like that, the little edge like that, the more fluffy the rose becomes. And you control that. So if I want to have a few of those right over here, I can have a few of those. I control that. I control that look of those petals like that. And if I wanted to restate these that I had out here, I can just drop that in here like that. Just that little corner. Just drag it and draw on it like that. That looks pretty good. Since I added a little bit more to that, I can add just a touch more here. Maybe weave. Sometimes I talk about in compositional skills, I talk about weaving petals back and forth to incorporate a bouquet. And so we'll just weave this one right into there. In other words, this petal overrides that back part of that rose there, and it kind of puts them all together. Now, so I have that in, and I have some of those lovely blues and stuff going through there. Let's just finish up here with some leaves. We have to decide, we have to look and decide here. Matter of fact, we might as well just drop that frame. That'll look pretty into that. And that frame in there, that's looking pretty. We could have a little bit more and maybe a few defined leaves and stuff here. So let's take some of our pine green, which we used earlier, or burnt sienna used, and we also had some of that blue, which I hit some white there, which we use our blue back out over here. But let's just use a little bit of that pine green, burnt sienna, touch of blue here. And let's come back in and define this edge here. And maybe we want to paint a more specific leaf shape here. And there's 1,000 ways you can do the leaves. A lot of times I like to draw up and then kind of reduce the color or let the color run out and go up like that, and then just put a little chisel mark for the vein line of the leaf there. And sometimes I'll take a little blue and just pull out just a bit there, just to set that. So that's a nice little leaf shape there. You can put lighter ones on, but my frame is dark, so I'm going to concentrate, I think, just on adding a few extra darks to the painting here. Let's go more blue right down here, and we'll add just a few little touches here and capture some of those darks. Now, whether or not you shape up every leaf, that's up to you. Shape up a little kind of oval shape, that's up to you. I'll go a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white into this. Let's just put a little bit of that in and make a softer, little different green over here, and go up and around. Let's reach out a little bit farther. Okay, now, since I didn't get a good variation there, when that happens, I just go like this. I just stick my finger in it and pull through like that, and just pull through and take off some of the color, so then I get a softer. Then you can pull through a little chisel, and the chisel can be light or dark here. That's kind of nice there, like that. Let's add just a little bit of the green movement out here. Let's add another one here. Out here like this, we'll shape up a leaf. Here, I'm going to put a little blue onto this one too, since I'm heading to that bluer side. Might as well put some right out there. And a little burnt sienna and green and a little more blue, a little darker color. Put a little chisel of that. Use that blue and that green, nice, cool color here to get a nice dark contrast there. Let's soften that out. Add a little white. A little of our background makes the color a little softer. Let's just put a little softer touch of that out here so that color diminishes away here. Diminishes away over here. Got a little white into that. That's okay. I'll just incorporate that. Sometimes I will come in and just splash like a little white, like maybe there's another one back there, or maybe there's another one over there. But it doesn't take too much here. Let's put in just a couple more little darker tones, and you could use this, I talk about it in the books and stuff all the time, negative painting, where we take the background or a leaf here and we come in and we'll paint the edge of the rose or whatever the object is with a negative paint, with the color of the leaf or something like that, so you don't always use the actual color of the rose. All kinds of stuff. But that makes kind of a pretty little painting here. Let's take a look at it. We'll step back just a bit here. Okay, let's put on our mat, what our mat is here. See, and in less than 30 minutes here, we have ourselves a nice little painting. Okay, they're fun to practice. They're fun to practice and try some of those different combinations. I like that blue up here and some of that blue and stuff showing up down there. One of the things that you can do, though, one of the things is that blue is showing up there. We put a little bit of it in there. Let's just do one last little thing here. Let's take a little bit of that blue violet here that we have into that background, and we'll add just a stroke or two, just a couple of them here, not many, just a couple of little touches, and this becomes what we call a carry tone. On the cool side, it's a harmony tone, but we also call it a carry tone. We're going to carry it through the painting here, and we'll add that to a few other little things here, and that gives another little tiny dose of harmony through the painting and stuff. Alrighty? Thanks for joining me. Take a look at some of those other videos. Sit down, have some fun, play with some stuff. It's all good practice. It's all really, really good practice. You should be doing a couple of these a day. If you want to be a good rose painter, you should be doing it like I do. I paint a couple of these a day just to keep warmed up practice, and I can sit down and paint them like this and paint them pretty quickly because I do them a lot. And that's what we should be doing, okay? You have lots of ideas. I have 60 of these things done for you, so you can take a look at some of them, okay? And I'll see you in some of the other videos. And as always, if you have kinds of questions or anything, visit us either on our social networking or write us to our studio, and I'll be glad to help you, okay? See you later. Bye-bye.